Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Horror Analysis with me, Drew. Today, we're continuing with Horror Anthropology. We are continuing with Europe and finishing Europe with Southern Europe. Italy, Spain, and Portugal. There's actually quite a bit in Italy and Spain. There's actually not that much at all in Portugal, but there's a bit, so I'm going to go over that as well. Once again, I regret to say that I can't find Mark Gaddis's Horror Europa online anywhere. BBC4 took it down, so we have to hope that sometime it will be put back up, because it is a fantastic look at getting the flavor for each of these areas. You get a different flavor for Italy than you do for Spain and Portugal. I guess they're very similar, Spain and Portugal. For horror movies. Except there's less in Portugal. The biggest one is probably going to be Italy, and I think I'm going to start with Italy. He'll go over Italy first. Italy, there's the word giallo. It's this Italian word for yellow. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that even close to being correct. Probably not, but I do the best I can. Giallo, Giallo. Italian word for yellow, because the cheapest books were printed with yellow covers. And as we've gone over many times, the cheapest books and the cheapest movies are often where horror lives. Most often where horror lives. So most of the movies, if you're on Wikipedia and you look at these guys, I'm going to give you a lot of guys to look at. You're going to find giallo, a giallo director, a giallo actor, giallo writer, a yellow writer, like a pulp. It's the same as in America with pulps, or England's penny dreadfuls. Whatever the cheapest way of being published is where horror goes from. And when films came out, of course there's a little bit more money, production costs in film, quite a bit more. But it's still less expensive after making a lot of money for very little money. Oh man, I cannot even read my own handwriting on here. Oh, okay, yeah. Of course it is. Okay, so where do I start with Italian? Let's start with Italian writers. I found two in Wikipedia, Italian horror writers. One was from the 20th century, Tommaso Landolfi, a very Poe-esque writer from all accounts. And then there's the 21st century, Gloria Barberi is Clark Ashton Smith-esque. So after that pulp writing, pulp-styled, Clark Ashton Smith was good friends with both Robert Howard and Lovecraft. Robert E. Howard, yeah, and Lovecraft. Let's see. There's a French-Italian... do I want to go over movies yet? the rest of our movies. So I guess I'll go over one of the movies, an early one that actually is going to pick up a bit on Spain as well. Eyes Without a Face. It was a French-Italian, and so many of these things are French-Italian or German-Spanish or German-Spanish-Italian. There's a lot of mixing and matching going on with Europe in the 70s, the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Joe D'Amato, Jesus Franco, Joe D'Amato being Italian, Jesus Franco being Spanish, just went everywhere to film. They like to put in different actors, put Swiss actors next to Italian actors, next to English actors, next to Spanish, Italian, Spanish, whatever. They were going for a mix, a very melting pot Euro way, which is cool. That's a good sounding thing anyway. So let's start with, I guess Joe D'Amato is a good place to start. He did a lot of low budget movies. He did spaghetti westerns. He did a lot of these people start off in like spaghetti western types. Romance. He did pretty much everything. He did a lot of exploitation movies. I think he even did some nunsploitation movies. He did the close to porno movies. The horror movies most famous for, I'm going to pronounce this correctly, Anthropophagus, Man-Eater. It's a zombie-esque movie, or the cannibal-esque movie. It's a mix. I watched the preview for it today. It actually looked pretty good for a preview. I think that was from late 70s or early 80s too, so pretty good. Dario Argento is, of course, going to be the most famous Italian director. Suspiria is going to be the most famous of his movies. The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, Inferno, which is the sequel, the second part of the trilogy with Suspiria, and then the third part, Mother of Tears, or the Third Mother. And there's a lot of others. It's Dario Argento. You're going to have a lot of good movies. Actually, Inferno, the second one, which was, according to most people, very underrated. I don't think I've ever found it. I have my tea here. I think it's steeped. Oh yeah, so I should have talked about him first. The next guy I'm going to talk about was one of the oldest Italian directors, Mario Bava. Mario Bava is most famous for, well, his most famous movie is because a little rock and roll band in the late 60s saw his movie and took their title. The movie they saw and the title they took for their band name was Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne, etc. Tony Iommi. I used to know the other guys' names too. Sorry. Tea bag. Okay. Black Sabbath. I actually watched a preview for this one too. I hadn't seen the movie before, but it was great. Boris Karloff. The other guy I couldn't remember, but Mario Bava was Dario Argento's mentor. Dario Argento took Mario Bava's son under his wing, Lamberto Bava, and actually produces a lot of his movies in the early 80s, and then I think even today he's still producing movies for other people. Lamberto Bava made Demons in 1980s, and a lot of 1980s stuff. He's the son of Mario Bava. let's see. Rogerio Diodato, Cannibal Holocaust, 1980, very well-known horror movie, sort of on that exploitation. I think they called it Mondo. I'm getting the Mondo term tossed around for like fake documentaries. It almost was the precursor to the found footage thing, like the Blair Witch of yesteryear was the documentary style of so 1980s Cannibal Holocaust. What else was that did I find? Oh yes, well, besides those guys, Lucio Fuccio? Is that right? Lucio Fuccio? Fulci. I just wrote it wrong. Fulci. I did Lucio Fuccio. That's just bad on my part. Fulci. Lucio Fulci, the quote-unquote Italian godfather of gore. Most famous for Zombie 2, and gosh, his list goes on for forever. He's had so many movies, starting in the 70s, maybe earlier, and going on. Yeah, actually, I think he started earlier. And going on for a long, long time. I watched a preview for Zombie 2, and that was fantastic as well. One that I wasn't crazy about was Poopy, P-U-P-I, I'm guessing that's Poopy, Avati, who has quite a number of films under his belt. Zeder, Z-E-D-E-R. I saw the preview for it, and I wasn't interested at all. It wasn't that interesting looking. Maybe it's just a bad preview. Maybe his other movies are more popular, but that seemed to be the most popular one. Maybe the other movies are better. I didn't mention this one. Alright, so the ones that... Yeah, this one's going to be... it started a subgenre. It's called Eyes Without a Face. I'm not sure if I mentioned it in the French one, because it's French and Italian mixed. It's from 1960, so it's really early compared to pretty much everything else on here. Yeah, it is the earliest out of everyone else on here. I don't think I mentioned it during the French one. A doctor has a disfigured daughter and keeps killing women to graft skin onto the daughter's face. And throughout it, the daughter's just looking through a mask, through the two eyes through the mask. Valentine from I Sell the Dead is essentially a in that same vein of the woman with the mask, and she takes off her mask, it's all disfigured. Eyes Without a Face also begins the series. There's a bunch of Spain takes it up. Jesus Franco takes up the mantle of this sort of thing, and creates the awful Dr. Orloff and diabolical Dr. Z, and these things about doctors going insane and doing weird and crazy stuff. One I do have to tell you about. I'm sure most of you are familiar with James Cameron. director of Terminator and Avatar and Titanic. Lots of movies. Lots of great special effects. He got started. His directorial debut was for an Italian movie, Piranha 2, Flying Killers, where piranhas are in this, area, and they're genetically mutated to being flying fish. So take your flying fish that can jump out of the water and fly for a little ways in the actual fish, but in the piranha movies, of course, it's forever, indefinitely. So piranhas flying around eating people, because you can. That's James Cameron, Titanic James Cameron's directorial debut. Once again proving the point before that every director that has done anything good has done a horror movie. Even if the horror movie's not good. So, yeah. Also in Italy... Oh, well, okay, and then there's that was in... What was Piranha 2? Piranha 2 was 78, I think. Also from Italy, in that same vein, there's a lot of rip-offs of Jaws. There's like a big sub-genre of Jaws rip-offs. Probably because Italy is a big peninsula, and it's bordered on three sides by, the Mediterranean, or those other seas. So yeah, there'd be a bit of aquatic horror, one would think. As I had the... I don't need that. Go away. There's horror is affected by the dominant religion of the region, and horror is affected by the cultural histories. But there's something to be said for horror as, affected by topography or geography. So Italy, of course, would make sense that Italy would have a lot of Jaws ripoffs, a lot of horror of water. Which never really struck me until I was doing this research. There was I don't know if it's award-winning, but it was very well reviewed, short movie called Morgue Street, which is based on Poe's The Murders of Rue Morgue, in La Rue Morgue. Rue being, of course, street or road. Yeah, so that was popping up a couple of times too for Italian things, and apparently very good. And of course, Tommaso Landolfini's Poe-esque writer in the 20th century. There's going to be a lot of Poe. I guess there's be some pro Poe, some Poe-esque sentiment. Now on to Spain, the Iberian Peninsula. I'm going to start with talking about... Oh, sorry. Before I leave Italy. Well, she's done a lot of things. She is probably one of the queens of horror, but the fact that she's done so much in Italy is why I'm mentioning her here. I was recently watching Shivers, or They Came From Within, and she was in that. Barbara Steele. Barbara Steele's done lots of horror movies, and most of them are in Italy. I don't know if she lives there, or she just is very well received in Italy. So she does a lot of Italian movies from the beginning of her career in the early 70s, maybe even late 60s, to now. She's done a lot of Italian movies. And actually, I think she's interviewed twice by Mark Gatiss in his videos, I believe. Yeah, because she's interviewed in Horror Europa for talking about the Italian movies, and she's interviewed in talking about They Came From Within. She didn't like her role in They Came From Within, and her role's fantastic in Shivers, They Came From Within, which I think is still available on YouTube. I don't know if I mentioned that before. No, because I didn't do Mind Control Alien Parasites yet. I still gotta do that video. Special topics, I suppose. Sorry, I'm rambling. Barbara Steele. Barbara Steele is a fantastic actress and does a lot of stuff in Italy. And she's British, a British-born actress. There's a lot of, it's the Hammer era, if not Hammer films themselves. These aren't Hammer films themselves; they're different companies. But there's a lot of that era of just a lot of trading. Christopher Lee is going to be popping up a lot in Spain. There's other Spanish directors. Jesus Franco especially is going to be using a lot of outside talent. So does Dario Argento, for that matter. And so did Mario Bava, since he, Black Sabbath was featuring I had his name earlier. Why am I forgetting his name now? Boris Karloff. So let's go on to Iberian Peninsula, onto Spain and Portugal. So we'll start with another actor, Spain. The Spanish Lon Chaney. He's not Lon Chaney, but the Spanish Lon Chaney is Paul Naschy. Naschy. I actually have Night of the Werewolf, El Retorno del Hombre Loco. Also originally released as The Craving here in the US. I didn't like this movie, but actually its big feature is it's a Paul Naschy movie. The Spanish Lon Chaney. There we go. Paul Naschy in. See right up there. Night of the Werewolf. And the werewolf stuff's pretty good. I don't even know if you can see this. Let's see how close I can get. Yeah, I can see that pretty good. Effects-wise, it was 1980, so I guess effects-wise, it's very good. It's werewolf's the guy in a mask. Fur-covered gloves. It's not a werewolf that's that impressive even for 1980 for me, because 1981 was American Werewolf and The Howling, so which were, of course, much bigger budget. This is Werewolf versus Elizabeth Bathory, the Vampire Countess. The plot was not impressive for me either. No, it's an introduction by star Paul Naschy. That's fun. Anyway, I might have to pop that in a little bit and check out the details, the special features. I like special features, especially on horror films. I don't really want to watch the movie, and the big thing was it was filmed in the castles of Spain, which is so. which the authenticity doesn't really matter much to me personally, but it made some. So I'm going to go over the big director of Spain, which I've mentioned his name about 6 times now, Jesus Franco, who died this April. He died only this year, 2013 April. And he started in 1961, and he went all the way to 2013. And he has a lot of films under his belt. He didn't start in horror. He started in other things as well. Early on, he did 2 Fu Manchu movies. We've mentioned Fu Manchu before. As the evil mastermind, crazy doctor guy. And Christopher Lee played his Fu Manchu. Then, as I mentioned before, Dr. Orloff, the awful Dr. Orloff in the diabolical Dr. Z. Sort of a takeoff of Eyes Without a Face. The first Dr. Orloff was a guy cutting up women to graft skin onto his daughter. Diabolical Dr. Z was a little bit like one of his disciples had a daughter who became a surgeon who was able to zombify people. Vampiros Lesbos. Vampiros Lesbos, it's pretty much what the name entails. It's lesbian vampire stuff going on. And this is one that's it's a Portuguese, one Portuguese actress, one Swiss actress, one British actor, and another Swiss actor or something. And it was filmed in West Germany or something along those lines. He's the one that also liked to film in Germany quite a bit. Count Dracula, the one that's supposed to be the closest to the book, was Jesus Franco, and that was Christopher Lee post Hammer Films. She Killed in Ecstasy was a revenge killer movie along the same lines, done about the same time as Vampiros Lesbos. I think it had the same star who died right after that. Very beautiful woman. I can't remember her name. And Bloody Moon was another one by him, which is a slasher film in the 80s, starting the the Spanish version of the slasher genre. Tea. Oh, strong stuff. Alright, so other than that, I have these chronological. Okay, cool. So one of the ones that Mark Gatiss talks about in Horror Europa is Who Can Kill a Child? And I barely remembered this, but I was able to find out some information on it. A couple goes to a resort off the coast of Spain, like Tenerife or something along those lines, and they don't find any adults. We see a lot of kids, and then you find out these kids are killing and torturing and killing the adults that they find. And the couple tries to survive. The wife doesn't. And the guy ends up walking up to a bunch of kids looking all baby-faced and, from 12 down, 12 to 5, and they're all looking all sweetly at him, and he's got a machine gun in his hand, and there's that moment where is he going to open fire on a bunch of children? Yes, they're psychological, diabolical killers, but there's that thing. He does open fire on them, and then he gets shot by a cop in a passing gunboat because he's shooting at kids. And then the cops go out to check on the kids, and then the kids kill them because they're crazy people. But and this I watched a movie yesterday. Actually, this weekend. Was it yesterday? The Puppet Masters redo that scene because the aliens take over the the state of Iowa or whatever, and when they send the army in to kill the aliens send the kids out. It's like, are you really going to shoot these baby-faced kids? And they don't, so the army is lost to the kids, to the aliens, because the army guys weren't willing to shoot the alien-infested kids. Makes sense. The next one down the list, Anguish, which was very weird sounding. Who Can Kill a Child is 76. Anguish was 87. It's a film within a film within a film. So it's weird that way. The main film that most of the action is that you're watching is a mom's hypnotized the son to go out and cut out people's eyes so that he can fix his bad eyesight. And then there's a film. Goers are watching that movie, and they're being stalked by some evil dude. And the guy, when he goes to cut out people's eyes, goes to a movie theater where they're showing another movie. So that's from the 80s. And of course, this is the non-Jesus Franco movies that are going on in Spain. 2005, we have the Nun. An evil nun drowned in holy water comes back and haunts her old students. It's sort of stuff you've heard before. Beneath Still Waters was also 2005. A cursed village is flooded to stop the curse, but now the lake where the village was is now cursed. 2007 is The Orphanage. This is produced by Guillermo del Toro. Essentially, a woman goes back to the orphanage where she was kept as a kid briefly, and finds out, her son hears voices of the kids that are there, and the kids are all dying, and there's a weird mask, and then they die, and then the mom dies, and then the husband dies, and it's fun. It's creepy and depressing. It's Guillermo del Toro, so it's good. It's produced by Guillermo del Toro. It's directed by someone else. I'm not going over Guillermo del Toro here because he's Spanish and Mexican, but mostly Mexican. He is born in Mexico. He lives in America now. And even though he films a lot in Spain, I don't know if I'm counting it. It's just, if it's Spanish produced by another director, I'll go over it. Like The Orphanage or Mama, which is Spanish Canadian, which is also Guillermo del Toro produced. And that was 2013. That was this year. The other one that was on here was a werewolf horror comedy, which looks fantastic. Lobos de Arga. Werewolf horror comedy. I'm okay with that. That's what we had for Spain. There's a lot of Spanish, but they all are Jesus Franco. He's as prolific. He was as prolific as the big guys from Italy as well, or Germany, and he bounced around. I don't know if they had a lot of interaction with those guys, but maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. Oh, and then we have Portugal, which is the line here. The earliest would be Tombs of the Blind Dead, 71, which was Zombie Knights Templar.
I don't know if Mark Gaddis goes over any these in Horror Europa. I know I'm missing one, but I can't remember what it was because I can't find the thing anymore. But if you get to see it, watch the Mark Gaddis Horror Europa to get the flavor for each of these countries. It's a little less in depth than I'm going for, but it's help. Trying to make an addition in addition to, I guess. There's 2006 Casa Ruim, which I don't have any synopsis for because Wikipedia didn't give me any. And then there's a zombie movie, 2007, called I'll See You in My Dreams. Do I have it there? 2000. No, that's 2003. 03. I'll See You in My Dreams, which is a weird zombie movie, and the soundtrack was done by a group called Moonspell, which is it's a very heavy metal, sort of that screaming metal that I'm not really fond of myself. It's not my style of metal. It's not Lordi. They're not as good as Lordi, but they're also horror-influenced metal, and they're Portuguese metal guys. Lordi's the Finnish Gwar type group. Very good pop-sounding metal. Very ear-friendly metal. Moonspell's very screamy, and it's not my style. But their videos are fantastic. Apparently the producers and all the set people for I'll See You in My Dreams stayed around after the movie cut and wrapped to do the music video for Moonspell's I'll See You in My Dreams, which is essentially the old song I'll See You in My Dreams, Hold You in My Dreams, whatever, from the 20s or whatever it is, done screaming metal, with a zombie thing going on, and the drummer throws a stick at the zombie when it breaks through the chains and puts it through his, and to stop him from attacking. It's silly, but it's a really good video. Another good video by them is Lycanthrope. It's not Lycanthrope, it's Lycanthrope. Also very horror-y, atmospheric, funny at times, dark. And in both movies, both videos, the singer gets killed. Yeah, Moonspell. But if you're a metal fan, I recommend Moonspell. Check it out. You might like it. I definitely recommend checking out Lordi. And I'll go over both of those again. I'll probably just reiterate what I said before about when I go over horror music, when I go over what do I call it? Non-narrative horror. Yeah, so that's Spain, Portugal, that's Europe. I think Europe's done. I didn't do, of course, England, because there's not enough separation between English horror and American horror. I can't tell the flavor differences, just because the language is the same. It's the same. Ireland, there's a little bit of differences now, but I don't think there is. I think it's mostly in the same group as England and Britain and America. But they are crossing over again. Let's see. France, Germany, Switzerland, Netherlands, Belgium, Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Sweden, Norway. I did Eastern Europe all as one video. That's this section over here, which you can't see my cursor. And I did Italy and DS. Okay, so yeah, that is Europe done. Next time, what do we have for the rest of the world? Well, we have Africa, Oceania, South America, Central America, and Mexico. I think I'm going to do Central America, South America, and Mexico all as one video. I have some information on those, and of course we'll go over Guillermo del Toro in that section, since I refused to go over him here. And the South American people, which are pretty cool as well. I'm still hoping to find some information on Africa. I'm not holding my breath on it. I have a feeling I'm not going to find anything, but if, hopefully by the time I get some information on, get ready to make a video for South America, Central America, and Mexico, I'll have at least an answer on. And Africa, there's nothing. And Africa, we'll make another video. So I'm not sure how many videos are left in this section. After this, non-narrative horror is coming up quick, which I'll do horror painting. I'll do a video for horror painting, a video for horror music, and video for, poetry? I'm not even sure. No, I'll probably mix that in with some music. Painting, sculpture. I'll find out. It's up in the air. Thanks for watching, folks. Have a great night. I'll see you next time on Horror Analysis.